many questions. Yeah.
I thought it that Ishmael did tshuva at the end of his life.
He himself, yes.
Now his children have been running wild in the world, causing a lot of chaos.
Okay.
What happens? Does he take responsibility for them at any point in Shamayim?
No, Ishmael had his own tikkun. He did tshuva for his own sins, but his children are living their own life. A father is not going to suffer for his own sins. If he himself did tshuva, and if he himself is not responsible for the actions. Everyone is still going to have their own free choice. But if the father taught their children wrong, and then the kid did wrong as a result of it, they both get punished. They both get punished. So that's what the Gemara says, that if a child repeats the father's sins, meaning that the father sinned and the son is repeating his sins, they both get punished. The son gets punished even more than the father because he still had free choice, meaning he knew that his father did wrong, and he still chose to do it.
Yeah, but if they constantly teach that Jewish people are bad in these Arab countries, well, that's what these kids are going to believe.
Sure, the kids are going to believe as a child you don't really have much free choice because until 6 years old you're not really different than a monkey. That's what the Ben Ish Chai says. Until 6 years old, child is not very different than a monkey. Don't worry, I have two kids that are under 6 years old. They're also little monkeys. They're cute too. But point is that, no, all the politically correct people are going to say, oh, monkey, no, my kid's really cute. So it's not an offensive thing. It's just a reality. The kid doesn't have like a full da'at, chokhmah of what's going on in real life. It only begins at 6 years old and then after that. So yes, up to that age, sure. But after that, the kid starts developing wisdom. And the kid starts developing their own mindset. And HaShem put a piece of himself into Adam HaRishon, which means that every single person has some portion of HaShem himself in him. Some portion of HaShem in him. So of course a Jew with Torah is going to have a lot more of Kedusha than a non-Jew living in the middle of Iraq. Of course. But that Iraqi, in the middle of nowhere, still has a piece of God in him. Or else he wouldn't survive, or else he wouldn't live. Which means that he has a conscience. He has an understanding. He's not an animal that works off of instinct. He knows the difference between right and wrong. Even Hitler knew the difference between right and wrong. He just chose wrong. That's just a reality. He decided that wrong is right and right is wrong. That's it. So even if somebody teaches a person that to kill people is great, especially if they're Jewish, especially if this and especially if that, okay, fine. Out to 6 years old, which pretty much at that age you can't do anything anyway, fine, he's like a cow. But at 16, at 20, at 25, at 30, eventually he starts developing his own opinion. That's how he develops his opinion to choose a wife. That's how he develops his opinion to choose a job. That's how he develops an opinion to choose different things. He's not just programmed once and that's it. He's not a computer. He has his own mind at some point that he uses.
Yeah, but then I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, but then why do we? If you're saying everybody knows right from wrong, even Hitler.
Ken.
Then how do we
justify wrong?
No. Why does the Torah need to tell us? I mean, if we naturally know what's right and wrong, why does the Torah need to tell us what's right and wrong?
No, so it's right and wrong meaning there's a basic right and wrong and there's a desire right and wrong. So, basic right and wrong, everyone knows that it's wrong to kill. You don't need the Torah to tell you that it's wrong to kill. Everyone knows that murdering somebody in cold blood is wrong. You don't need the Torah to tell you that. Everyone knows that taking something that does not belong to you, if you came and you went to somebody's house, you start stealing their stuff, it's wrong. You don't need the Torah to tell you that's wrong. Everyone knows that going with somebody else's wife or somebody else's husband is wrong. You don't need the Torah to tell you that right and wrong. You're a human being, you know it's wrong. Even the dove knows it's wrong, and that's why the dove has only one husband. That's it, doesn't have 80 husbands. But some animals have 80 husbands. Why? Because that's just the way they are. That's their instinct. But the point is that there are certain things that you know. Naturally, you know as a human being, you have a sechel, you have a brain in your head, you have a conscience, you have a neshama that operates. Now, there's also desire. There's also desire. Desire, like lust and so on, that is something that taints your senses of right and wrong. Meaning, it rationalizes your right and wrong that you already know, that's instilled in you. So every murderer rationalizes why he murdered. Why? He murdered him because he wanted to get paid $25,000 from the mafia, so he could pay the school's tuition for his kid. So really, he was doing a mitzvah. Yeah, you don't want my kid to go to school.
What if the person was a serial killer, though? Or he did
Again,
no reason?
even that person that's a serial killer, there's actually a guy named Iceman, they called him. He was a professional killer in the mafia. His name was Iceman, and they did a whole special on him while he was in prison. He's still in prison, I guess, if he didn't die. And he was a serial killer. He was like the number one serial killer, for the mafia and so on. But he had two lives. One life, he was a vicious, horrible, worst person on planet Earth. The other life, perfectly normal father that never ever gets upset, with a wife, with kids, who never knew what he did for a living. They thought he's like a math teacher. In his mind, that's warped, obviously, that's absent of Torah and Kedusha, he rationalizes, I'm going to make a living. That's all I'm going to make a living. I'm going to kill bad people. I'm not killing good people. I'm killing bad people. I'm killing other mafia people. So they're bad people anyway. I'm doing the world a service. I'm like the cleaning service. Everyone rationalized their way. Hitler himself also rationalized his way, saying that the Jews have something called a conscience, and conscience is the disease. And therefore he's helping the world by getting rid of the Jews. He's helping the world. He believed that he's helping the world. Everyone justifies that's desire. A person could feel that it's perfectly normal and perfectly okay to go steal somebody else's wife. Why? He's bad to her anyway. He rationalizes his mind. No, he doesn't treat her well. I'll treat her better. And the foolish woman is going to go with this other guy because she thinks also he's going to treat me better. Little does she know that as soon as they're together the first time, he's going to throw her in the garbage. So that's the thing. The Yetzer Hara is fooling us to believe that what is instilled in us is wrong.
What if a person takes his own life, God forbid?
That's a person that's mentally unstable, and that's usually a person that gets to a point of suicide. It's a moment of instability. It's a moment of just a desperation, and they're convinced that whatever feeling they have right now, whatever pain they're dealing with emotionally or otherwise, is permanent. I know this from two examples. Number one, there's one guy that jumped off of the bridge in San Francisco. What is it called? Golden Gate Bridge, right? Yeah. Some guy jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. A lot of people, unfortunately, jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge throughout history, but only 2 people survived. 2 people jumped off the bridge and survived. One of them is the guy that I'm talking about. He survived. He jumped off the bridge to commit suicide because of different problems that he had in his life, and he survived. Now he tells a story. There's a video online. He tells a story. He says, the second my feet left the bridge, I regretted it. Before I left the bridge, I hated life. I wanted to die. I knew that it's going to be better. I'm going to end this. And then he was in such desperation and mental instability that he felt nothing could be worse than the current situation. I must end it. But the second truth hit him in the face, meaning not even the second he hit the floor or the water, the second he realized he's going to die, second his feet left the bridge, he said, mistake. And I was so sorry that I did it. And I saw my whole life flashing in front of me. And I was so upset that I killed myself. And I couldn't believe myself. But now it was too late. And I was falling. And it gives you the whole experience. It's mind-numbing. It's unbelievable. Guy that must tried to commit suicide. And he regretted it. That's the second example. Second example is me. Second example is that I know that when I was in pain 24 hours a day for 7 years, there were moments during that time that to say it was pain is an understatement. If you could imagine someone on fire, it's kind of painful. I don't know if you could imagine such a thing. That's what I felt. So I know a guy that Shem and HaShem, he has a tikkun. When he learns Torah, he feels like he's on fire. He has an enormous amount of pain, as if he's on fire. We'll talk about this at some other, maybe tomorrow's shiur or another time, about having difficulty while you're studying Torah specifically and still obligated to do the mitzvot. But anyway, there was an enormous amount of pain. And there are times, sometimes are worse than others, but I can tell you from my own personal experience of dealing with a lot of hardship and so on, that one thing I know about a little bit is suffering. And when you're in the fire, when you are suffering, you are convinced, not you think, you're convinced it's never going to be over. If you have no HaShem, you have no emunah, you have no idea what's going on, you have nothing, you're just basic regular person. If you do not have full 100% emunah and you're dealing through suffering, you're convinced it will never be over. Not maybe in an hour or maybe in a year or maybe in 10 years. No. You're convinced what you feel right now is never going to be over. Which makes you very suicidal. Why? Who wants to deal with pain forever? That's why when I tell people, listen, there's certain parts of punishment that are permanent. It's like, no, what's the point of it being punishment, being permanent? Because they're thinking in like normal, healthy terms. First and foremost, you should know that just like Hashem's love is unlimited, so is His wrath. So that already throws away any logic, any human logic into the garbage. Second of all, just talk to anyone that ever suffered in their life. Real suffering, you're convinced they'll never be over. At the moment you're feeling it. You're convinced it's never going to be over. So, I know why somebody could commit suicide. I understand them completely. It's obviously wrong, but that's the mindset of a person that lost all hope.
Does the person that does that lose their world to come as well?
Unfortunately, they are charged as a murderer. They took a life that's not their own.
What if they have mitzvot before they?
Yeah, it's not. They don't lose olam haba, but they have a serious problem because they're charged as a murderer. They don't lose olam haba. They do go to Gehenom. They do suffer. Actually, the foolish thing is that they think that death will end their suffering, but in reality, it only begins the suffering. They just brought themselves much more suffering because of how they chose to end their life. They took something that's not theirs. They committed murder, and they're going to suffer something tremendously worse than what they suffered in real life.
Even if the person was a goy?
Yes. Goys and Jews both have Gehenom. Different Gehenoms, but they both have Gehenom.
That's what it is. If a person has mitzvot behind them, and they, God forbid, commit suicide, they go to Gehenom and then they go to Olam Haba?
Depends what kind of mitzvot they have, and depends what kind of other sins they have. If the only sins they made their whole life is suicide, it's hard to believe that's their only sin. Usually a person that commits suicide also lived a life without God. A person that has God in his life, does not commit suicide unless he's a martyr, unless he's dying for God. Meaning someone told him, go pray to Jesus or something like that, or I'll kill you, he dies. Or he kills himself. He's allowed to do it, it's a mitzvah to do it. He died in Kiddush Hashem. But a person that jumps off of a bridge because he feels sick, or because he lost money, or his girlfriend left him, or his wife left him, or something like that, that's usually a person that made a ton of sins to begin with. And that person, the suicide is most likely the least of their problems. They most likely are also made certain sins that are din karet, which took away their olam haba even before suicide. Again, it's not one size fits all. I'm not the judge or the jury. It's just a reality. If somebody that's got to a point of committing suicide, usually also did not follow the rest of what Hashem said, or most of what Hashem said. If he made mitzvot, he'll get rewarded for mitzvot. But if he died a mechalel Shabbat, if he died a adulterer, if he died someone that wasted seed on purpose, and if he died making some of these sins without doing tshuva, there's no Gan Eden.
Wasting seed is equivalent to murdering your own kids, right?
Wasting seed is worse than murdering your own kids, because murder is just one person. Wasting seed is millions.
Didn't even Adam and Shem have that sin?
Yes, and he did tshuva for 127 years. He did tshuva for 127 years. Everyone has a sin. There's no such thing as a person who does not sin. The key is tshuva. The key is tshuva.
Weren't there 7 people in the Torah that never made a sin?
Four. Four people. Gemara says 4 people. The 4 people are David HaMelech's father, Yishai, Moshe's father, Amram, Shlomo HaMelech's son, Kehat, I believe, and Benjamin. Those are Kilav and Benjamin. Those are the 4 people that never sinned. And the only reason Hashem took their life is because of the original sin of Adam HaRishon. So yes, everyone has some type of sin. The question is, how big is the sin versus how big the mitzvot are? Did you do tshuva? Did you not do tshuva? And so on. So it's not necessarily that Hashem is looking to punish us. It's that Hashem is looking to reward us. But at the same token, He cannot just give you a reward for no reason. And He cannot just let go of sins for no reason. There's an accounting. There's a din v'cheshbon. There's din v'cheshbon. By the way, one of the things that connects the generation of Adam HaRishon all the way to Avraham Avinu is the following. When Adam HaRishon, the first Mishnah we read a couple of weeks ago, it said the first generation, from Adam HaRishon to Noach, there was 10 generations. From Adam HaRishon to Noach, 10 generations. Noach had a son named Shem. The Torah, in the book of Genesis, also says that Shem was another name for him was Malki Tzedek. Malki Tzedek, the king of Shalem. Malki Tzedek, the king of Shalem. Why Malki Tzedek, king of Shalem? Because Malki Tzedek, Shem, the son of Noach, was the tzaddik, and he was Shalem. He was a complete person, completely righteous. And they made him king of a place called Shalem. This place, you fast forward 10 more generations, is the very same place that Avraham Avinu has the Akedat Yitzchak. Akedat Yitzchak. Hashem says to Avraham Avinu, bring your son Yitzchak to this mountain. And as we talked about, Yitzchak goes to his father and says, no, do it. And Avraham is ready to do it. And Hashem says, no, don't do it. And then it says, Vayikra Avraham Shem Makom Hahu Adonai Yireh. Asher Yamar Hayom Be'ar Adonai Yireh. So it says Avraham named the place. Hashem Yireh. God will see. Why? Because on this mountain, God has been seen, or will be seen. So this same place that was called Shalem, it's called Shalem, Avraham renamed it. He named it Yireh. Now Hashem says, wait, Malki Tzedek, who is Shem, he is a complete person, righteous. He named the place Shalem. Avraham Avinu, who was a Dolador, giant of giants, also a complete person. He named the place Yireh. Can't be both. What do? We combine the two. What do we call it today? Yerushalayim. That's the connection between the two. Yeah.
Rambam says that a righteous person can lose all their reward if they sin. Like at the last moments of their life, they do wicked. So how is that? How does that work? A person can do mitzvahs his own life and lose all of it.
The Malach HaMavet comes to a person moments before he dies and tries to make him make one sin. Just one. What's the sin? Just say you regret all the mitzvot you did. It wasn't worth it. Just look how hard your life was. Look how hard your life was. Look at you had this, you had that, you had this, you had that, you had this, you had that, you had this, and your friend had this and this and this and this and this. He said, look, you're both going to die. You're both about to go into the grave. He had the Ferrari, you had tustus. He had a house, the White House, you just had white. Yeah, he had, he had 3 wives. No one wanted to look at you. He had 16 kids. You just looked at his kids. Look at the life you had. What'd you have? Some books? You had some shiur Torah on Tuesday? What'd you have? You had a difficult life. Say you regret it. Person says he regrets it, he loses everything. That's also why, Rabotai, we learned from there that a person should never ever say he regrets a mitzvah. Never. Why? Because that's how you lose the mitzvah. So someone can do a mitzvah, and let's say, for example, he says, went to the shiur, and then after the shiur, someone calls him like, so you missed the party, or you missed this, you missed that. Man, I went to the shiur, I can't believe, I shouldn't have gone to the shiur. Shouldn't have gone to the shiur. You think it's not a big deal, you said a few words, it's a big deal. In Shemaim, the few million mitzvot you just got during the shiur went somewhere, not your account. Where'd they go to? Malach HaMavitz. All of the mitzvot you just got, go to the Sita Achra. Deleted from your account, put into their account. So, never ever regret a mitzvah. Never ever regret a mitzvah. That's one of the foolish things that a person can do, but unfortunately, there's a lot of tests. Rabbatai. Yeah.
So he thought Hashem told him to go and slaughter his son, but then Hashem didn't really tell him not to. It was a law.
Yes, that's what I said.
So why couldn't Hashem say it himself?
Why couldn't Hashem say to Avraham himself?
Yeah.
The Midrash Me'am Loez, Midrash Rabbah, and also Tanchuma all say that if Hashem would have spoken to Avraham himself, he would have scared him. Same reason of why Hashem didn't actually send the Malach himself there. Because the Malach is, each one of the Malachim and Shemaim is strong enough to destroy the entire world. Each Malach works for Hashem, Malachi HaSharet. Each one has the power to destroy the entire world. To show up, it's kind of scary.
So you thought it was God?
It's not about thinking it was God. Scary. Doesn't make a difference with it's God, not God. You see something scary, you get scared. You may do something stupid. Especially since your son is a half a centimeter away from a knife. You may kill him in the end. So that's the reason why Hashem not only did not speak to him himself, but also did not send the Malach himself to show up, and they just told him. Just said it had a voice. Before he came, there was a voice first. That's what the Midrash says. Yeah.
Rambam also says that a person who just learns Torah without supporting himself is chil Hashem, and he says other things. So we see many people who do just that. They learn Torah without supporting themselves. They live on tzedakah.
Yeah, so there is a whole shiur we've given about the topic to some extent. It's not something that's easy to answer, because on one end, you have to explain what the Rambam really said. It's not as simple as what you're saying. On another end, there's a couple of different opinions in the Torah. Now, we've talked about it in the past, the sources that we used. With Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, a debate that he had with Rabbi Yoshua in the Gemara Masechet Brachot, I believe it's in the 37th page, about Torah, just learning Torah and working, which is part of the foundation of what the Rambam is using. In so many words, this is what it says. Rambam in general was not a fan of people just learning Torah, which is understood. The Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says that a person that just learns Torah without an intention of teaching it is like a person who does not have a God. Why? Because the point of learning Torah is to learn about God, meaning to learn His midot, to learn His character traits and emulate Him. He has good character traits, you should have good character traits. He's generous, you should be generous. He's loving, you should be loving, and so on and so forth. So a person that's not going to teach is like a person is learning a Torah like he's learning a math book or he's learning a history book. So that's point number one. Point number two, as far as a person that the Rambam also says that you shouldn't actually charge for teaching Torah under all conditions. There are certain conditions you're allowed and certain conditions you're not allowed. There's schar halicha, there's a, that replaces what you could have made somewhere else. There's intricate parts to the law of when you're allowed and when you're not allowed to charge for teaching. But as far as a person working and a person learning, it all depends. It all depends on how you collect your money. If a person has a way to make a living, his parents, his family, an inheritance, some business that he has on the side, and all he does is work, all he does is learn Torah, he's perfectly fine. He's perfectly fine. According to the Rambam, he's perfectly fine. If he has a source of income coming from someplace, he just doesn't have to work. It just comes in, no problem at all. When does he have a problem? No, when does he have a problem? Even if it's tzedakah, even if, let's say, for example, his parents said, listen, we're going to give you X amount of money every month, you just learn Torah. It's perfectly fine according to the Rambam. Perfectly fine.
What about learning in a kollel?
Cool, same thing. Anywhere. You learn in a kollel, learn in your house, learn in a zoo, learn wherever you want. Someone's going to pay for your rent and whatever he's going to pay. No problem. According to the Rambam, is no problem. When is it a problem? When is it a problem to just go learn and not work? Or when a person uses their Torah time to go collect money. Meaning, you decide you're going to learn Torah. You're going to go to the kollel. And you depended that God's going to send you money. The moment God gave you a test, and He didn't send you the money on time, the time that you thought it was supposed to be, your parents didn't give you the money, your neighbor didn't give you the money, the investor didn't give you the money, money's not coming from in a normal way. Instead of continuing to learn and withstanding this emunah test and showing that you really believe, what'd you do? You put the books down and you went and started collecting tzedakah door to door. That's chilul Hashem. Why? Number one, you're not learning Torah. Number two, you're showing that whatever you did learn, you don't really believe. That you're not allowed to do. So yes, if you have a source of income, regardless of where it comes from, whether it's coming from the kollel, or it's coming from people that send you tzedakah, or so on and so forth, you're perfectly fine. If you have it, as long as you're learning. But if you're going to use the learning time to go collect tzedakah, then you have a problem according to the Rambam.
Didn't Rambam also say no benefit from Torah, like money?
Like I said, the halacha is there's a time to yes, there's a time to no. Meaning, if a person is teaching at a time that he could be doing something else. So for example, I have a profession, and if let's say my profession, whatever the profession is, would earn me $1,000 an hour. Now if, instead of I could go work right now, and I could go work and I can make $1,000 an hour. So that means if I work for 5 hours, I'm going to make $5,000. But instead of going to work for 5 hours, I go teach you guys for 5 hours. That means I have a halachic permission to charge you $5,000. Why? Because I would have made the $5,000 elsewhere. I could charge you less if I want, but I could charge you $5,000. Why? Because this is, in essence, I'm using the time I could have made this to do this. So I'm allowed to charge you for that. But, it's not allowed to charge something where there is no reason for it. Meaning, many people say, listen, I'm going to give you a lecture if you pay me $5,000. But if they tell him, listen, we want you to give the Torah lecture, but we don't have $5,000. Then he says, okay, then I'm not coming. You can't do such a thing. You can't behave that way, because technically you're not supposed to teach the Torah purely for the money only. You can't just do it for the money. You're allowed to charge, you're allowed to make a living if that you would make, but it has to be reasonable. It has to be within reason. It has to be, there's certain intricate laws within it. It's not just that every single person that teaches Torah or every single person that learns Torah automatically should assume that Hashem is going to send them man from Shamayim like they did to the to Am Yisrael for 40 years. It doesn't work quite like that. But at the same token, you can't just go out there and start charging people $25,000 just for showing up for no reason, which many speakers do, unfortunately.
You said before that that if you're learning Torah but you're not teaching it, it's like learning a math, or it's like learning a math book or whatever. What if a person doesn't have the ability to teach? Like, what if a person sits and just reads and tries to get as much Torah knowledge as he can, but he doesn't really have?
Today he doesn't have the ability to teach. Tomorrow he may. Point is that he should have an intention to teach eventually. And this does not mean every single person has to become a public speaker. That's not what teaching means. Teaching means sometimes you can be a public speaker if he has the ability to do it. Sometimes he doesn't have the ability to do it, or time. But he has a family, right? So teach his family, teach his wife, he has kids, teach the kids. If he doesn't have a family, if he doesn't have the ability to speak to the public, and he doesn't have a wife that wants to marry him, and he doesn't have kids that he has, and it's only him by himself on an island, teach himself. Teach himself. But obviously most people are not in such a horrible, horrific situation. Most people have one of those things. They have a friend, they have a colleague, they have a chavuta, they have a somebody they can exchange Torah with.
How did the Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, how did he know that by sitting and learning all day he was doing the right thing? I mean,
Meaning what?
It says that a person should learn and work.
Okay.
It's the more popular opinion. How do some people like Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai have the ability to just sit and learn all day and not work? I mean,
Ability meaning naturally, or ability meaning like what makes you? You asked two different questions at the same time.
No, like not the ability physically, like the ability to like.
How did he know he's right for his decision to study and learn Torah?
Yeah, and not work.
Decision right meaning like HaShem agrees with it, or decision right like money's gonna come.
No, like Hashem agrees with it.
Well, I mean, first off, all of the Tanaim were at a level that they had the ability to revive the dead. They had Ruach HaKodesh, they had different insights that are beyond our scope of understanding. Now, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai happens to be one of the people that learned. He wrote the Zohar. So he, in the cave with him and his son, they learned with angels. So they had kind of a first line of of communication with Hashem Yitbarach, and he knew right or wrong much more than we could even comprehend. Others that come much later than him, his students, later on, didn't have his level and so on. I mean, we have sources. We see what our forefathers did, and we compare it to what we do. That's why we have a Torah. Torah is not just a book of stories, chas v'shalom. The Torah is to show us what Hashem wants from us. It's an instruction book of how to live, how to succeed, how to do good business, how to have good marriage, and so on and so forth. So Torah is orah, which means instructions to do a lot of everything. So Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai and Rabbi Yeshua had a debate of what's called what a person should do. Should a person study full time, or should a person study and work? The ultimate, the machloket between the two of them comes to a final conclusion, which is if a person has the ability, not only the mental wherewithal, but also the emunah muscles, then ideally he should study full time. Ideally. But they even say in the Gemara, Rabbi Yeshua says it, and Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai agrees. It doesn't work for everybody. Why? Some people don't have either the mental capacity or the emunah to do such a thing. The emunah muscles to do such a thing, to only study, and therefore they need to do a balance.
Yeah, but back then it was a different generation. I think back then it was much easier to study all day than today's world. Like, if that makes sense.
Everything makes sense, but it's not necessarily correct. You're saying that today it's the Torah is somewhat obsolete, which is not right.
No, it's not obsolete. But
Different tests, different generations. So you're saying that today we have a lot more tests, which you're right. We have not necessarily a lot more tests. We have different tests. Our tests today, we have cell phones that we're addicted to. We have 1.5 million friends that are there when we don't need them. We have a lot of different yetzirah that interfere with our learning Torah. Yes.
how is Mashiach supposed to come out of such a generation when you're talking about people like Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, which is how many years ago?
2,500.
Yeah, I mean,
He didn't come then. Why is he going to come now?
that's what I'm saying. How is Mashiach supposed to be so like come out of such a generation that's on such a low level?
Because the generation that Hashem took us out of Egypt was just as low. We were at the 49th level of Tumah when we were in Egypt. All we did is 3 mitzvot. All we did was 3 mitzvot. We didn't change our names. We still had Jewish names. We didn't change our clothes, meaning we didn't wear tight pants like the Goyim. We didn't wear mini skirts like the goyim. We didn't wear, pretty much. We weren't walking around half naked like the goyim. So we were still modest. We actually also modest in behavior. We didn't intermarry, with the exception of one particular case, with Shlomit, that got raped by the Egyptian. The rest of the Jewish women stayed righteous and did not have such an experience. And also the Shmotam. So those are the three things. There was one other thing. There was a fourth thing that I'm forgetting right now. But the point is, there was three, and some say four, basic level mitzvot that we did that kept us connected to HaShem. And we were at the 49th level of Tumah. If we would have gotten to the 50th, Hashem would have had to destroy the world, because there would be no way for us to do tshuva. Now the Or HaChaim HaKadosh says that in the generation before Mashiach comes, we will reach the 50th. Will actually be worse than Egypt. But you just said that there's no tshuva from there. There's no tshuva if there's no Torah. Now we have Torah. Before we got to Mount Sinai, when we were at the 49th level of Tumah, we had no Torah. So if we would have gotten to the 50th, there was no way to recover. And the generation before the Mashiach, we're going to get to a worse level as a whole, not as individuals. Some individuals will be tzaddikim. As a whole, we'll reach a worse level, but Hashem is still going to save us because we have Torah. So, just like there is more trials and tribulations in the last generation, which the Gemara, the Rabbi Eliezer ben Holkinos, Rava, Abaye, all of these giants themselves said that they want the Mashiach to come, but they don't want to be alive to see it, because of how many tests are going to be before Mashiach comes. Gemara Masechet Sanhedrin says that it's going to be very, very difficult. But, just like it's difficult, the reward is greater. There's a big merit to be it. So, how is it that with all of the heresy that's in the world, the idol worship that's in the world, the intermarriages in the world, how could it be that, Mashiach can come and lighten the place up? Is if you see a lot of darkness, the darker it is, the more impact light has. Meaning you could have 500 rabbis, not even talking about the priests and reverends and all the idol worshippers. I'm talking about rabbis, Orthodox rabbis, modern Orthodox rabbis, or other fake rabbis that don't have Yirat Shamayim. And they can teach people that you're allowed to drive on Shabbat. And they can teach people that you're allowed to eat at non-kosher places because only vegetables. And they can teach people all types of things that are against the Torah. I'm not saying all of modern Orthodoxy or all of anyone in particular. I'm just saying in general. You can have a bunch of darkness come from something that's supposed to be light. Confusion. Like this Dweck guy that told people that the greatest thing that happened in recent times is that homosexuality is public knowledge and it's okay. He's the Orthodox rabbi, said it's okay. It's great. It's the greatest thing that happened. He had a whole lecture about it. So, anyway, the point is that he is one of the many that are bringing a lot of darkness. A lot of confusion. A lot of people don't know what to do. Wait, homosexuality allowed or not allowed? Good, not good. Chilul Shabbat, good, not good. This good, not good. Intermarriage, good, not good. It's confusing to a lot of people.
How do you know this guy's even Jewish? Because there was one guy that also said the same thing, that homosexuality was okay on YouTube, and I found out that he was actually.
No, he's a well-known rabbi, unfortunately, and he's actually connected to. He's a well-known person. Unfortunately, he was a rabbi in New York for a while, and then they kicked him out, and now he's in London somewhere, and soon Gehenom. But the point is that it's until then, he's confusing a lot of people, and there's a lot like him. Like, for example, about a year ago, we had a whole shiur for 2.5 hours, trying to shed light on darkness. What was the darkness? If you weren't familiar with the shiurim back then you probably didn't hear about it. But there was one of the top rabbis, not just in a community, top 2 dayanim, Dayanim in Florida. There's 2 heads Dayanim in Florida. One of them, the younger one, his name is Ephraim Goldberg. He decided that it's a good idea to bring the number 1 Catholic missionary in the world, a guy by the name of Matthew Kelly, to speak to his congregation at the Boca Raton Synagogue about the purpose of life. This is an Orthodox rabbi. It's not a reform or a conservative or atheist. I was at the Kehillah. I was going there. I lived there. And we fought tooth and nail for over a month to try to stop this. And Baruch Hashem, it worked. Hashem had mercy on us and stopped this whole event from happening after a month and a half of fighting. The point being is that people like this, that have no yirat shamayim, are bringing a lot of darkness to Am Yisrael. A lot of darkness, a lot of confusion. People don't know anything about modesty. They don't know anything about driving on Shabbat. They don't know anything about anything. You go to that synagogue, there's a parking lot with 250 cars every Shabbat. 250 cars coming in, not coming out. It's an Orthodox shul, a dayan. It's not like some rabbi that no one knows, and maybe it's one of the top rabbis. The Dweck guy is very, very well known. Unfortunately, he's actually married to one of the people in Rav Ovadiah's family, his daughter or his granddaughter or something like that. So these are not just nobodies. These are people that are very, very well known. Unfortunately, they're bringing a lot of darkness to Am Yisrael.
So you're saying that a big rabbi would actually say that homosexuality is okay?
I'm not saying he calls himself a rabbi, and according to the community calls him a rabbi, but as far as Torah, he's a heretic. The point I'm trying to tell you is that there is a lot of darkness. I'm trying to get to the conclusion of what the answer to your question is. There is a lot of darkness and a lot of confusion. What you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. If you look at the religious world today, almost every religious married woman is wearing a wig, even though there are 127 poskim say it's not allowed. And there's even more reasons of why it's not allowed now because of connection to Avodah Zarah, which there's half a dozen shiurim that I've talked about in the past discussing the details. Point being is there's a lot of darkness. So what's the point? What are we doing here? Why we even bother if 80% of Am Yisrael doesn't keep Shabbat? The 20% that do are also confused. No one knows what's going on. What's the point? Why we even bother? We bother because the darker it is, the more impact the light will have. If you have a very, very dark cave, very dark, huge, giant cave, all you see is darkness. Take a little tiny candle. Light the candle, it's light. So 500 rabbis can say that homosexuality is good, and Chilul Shabbat is good, and all Zionism is good, and all this nonsense is good. All this anti-Torah, anti-God mentality is good. But one little guy that no one ever heard of comes and says the truth, and Baruch Hashem, you see thousands of people doing tshuva. That's it. So you come into the shul, you bring light. They come to the shul, they bring light. You guys are part of the light. You're part of the light. You're the light. So that's what makes Hashem happy. Happy enough to let the world continue despite the darkness. And that's what's going to bring the Mashiach.
Isn't it true that the greater a person is, the greater his Yetzer Hara is also?
Sure. Still doesn't justify being a heretic, though. Again, it all depends if the person has to be great in the first place. So you have to admit, again, we're not judge or jury. We're not judge or jury, but a person, his greatness is not necessarily determined just purely based on how much Torah he studied in his life, there's a lot of things that it depends on. It's not just how much Torah he studied. He might have had a very, very rewarding life where he was born into a religious family that believed in learning Torah, and he studied his whole life, and his parents were rich, and he didn't have to work, and so on and so forth, and he became a successful rabbi. That does not make him a great person. That just makes a person that studied a lot of Torah. What makes a person a great person is if he's willing to sacrifice himself. Mesirut nefesh. If he's willing to sacrifice himself for Hashem. If he's willing to sacrifice himself for Am Yisrael. What is he doing it for? There's no issues with success. The issues is why you succeeded. What's behind the success? So when a person his number one motivation is to make people happy, then all he's doing is fulfilling the prophecy that it says in the Gemara Masechet Sotah, page 49b, which is Pnei Ador ki Pnei Kelev. Face of a generation is a face of a dog. What does it mean, face of a generation, face of a dog? One of the commentaries says that the rabbis are going to be like dogs. The rabbis of the generation are going to be like dogs. Why? Because if it's your dog, every so often, the dog runs in front of you, but every so often, what does he do? He looks back. Is it okay if I'm going? Okay. Is it okay if I'm going? It's okay for me to give a lecture? Is it okay for me to talk about Shabbat? Oh, no Shabbat? Okay. Can I talk about, Nida? No. And they listen to the Kehillah. What can I say? What I can't say? What can I do? What I can't do? That's Pnei Ador ki Pnei Kelev. They're little klavim. They're little dogs. They're scared of the owner. That's what we have, Rabbatai. That's what we have. We have people that, unfortunately, are just fulfilling the prophecy of bad. We also have people, Baruch HaShem, like Rav Mizrahi and Rav Zitron and several other rabbis that are fantastic rabbis that are bringing light to the nation. Be'ezrat Hashem will bring the Mashiach Tzidkenu. B'mehera b'yamenu. Amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen ve'amen.